here we are with Adobe InDesign open, and I wanted to make sure our screens matched. And then you got used to the basic setup and how to get everything set up before you get started. What I'm going to do is I'm currently in Adobe InDesign 2020. If you have older versions, that's okay. I'm going to be talking about what would happen if you have an older version. Maybe there's a certain tool that looks a little bit different. I will bring that up a little bit in the class. So I'm going to go ahead and get the basic workspace open. I have kind of my default custom workspace here, but let's all reset it so we can have a similar workspace. So I'm going to go up to Window, and this is just like Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop. I'm going to go down to Workspace, and I'm going to make sure it's on Essentials for right now. We could always change this later, but I like to kind of keep everything on Essentials and then customize it later. And if you have already are on Essentials, we want to reset our workspace. So we can go down to Reset, and it's going to bring us all back to the default settings, Reset Essentials, and here we go. So this is what it'll look like if you're on the 2020 version. Of course, you can always go to Window and bring out more panels. If you don't see the panels on the right, this will be just like Photoshop and Illustrator. In fact, a lot of Adobe InDesign is very similar to Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. So if you know any of those programs, then you're already going to know a lot about the interface and how it works. So we have different things like links, which will be important, color, layers, info, and even text wrap options are here. So if you don't happen to see them on the right and we go over them in the class, make sure you go to your Windows panel and you can call out some of those panels. So for example, if we want to get our layers out, we can click on our layers panel and we can drag this any which way and craft our own unique interface that we feel comfortable with the most tools that we like to use personally. So let's talk about the interface a little bit more. You have similar tools that you've seen before, like the pen tool. We have a rectangle frame tool, which you'll also recognize from Photoshop. We have some basic shape tools, gradient tools, eyedropper tools. These function a little bit differently than other programs, but mostly their functions are very, very similar. We have type tools and selection and direct selection tools. You also notice you have your fill and your stroke, just like you do with other programs. So we're going to go over to the right, and you're going to see this properties panel. If you're in 2019 or 2020 version of InDesign, you're really going to really need that properties panel. They've condensed a lot of these panels together. So we have your character, your paragraph panels. You also have your align panels, text wrap, a lot of really important quick actions. All of it is in a centrally located properties panel. So that's probably going to be your most used panel. On the right will be your properties, since it kind of contains all the most frequently used tools. So if I were to go over to select my text tool and I would start to type, notice that the properties panel has changed to now factor in character and paragraph options. So you'll notice that this will change as you start to use tools on the left. So this is incredibly important. The next most important thing is your pages. So InDesign is meant for multiple page documents. So this is where it's very unique to other programs. So you have these different pages that you can add and subtract. You can go right down here to your addition to create new pages. You can create hundreds and hundreds of pages. InDesign is meant to handle hundreds of pages if that is something you needed to create. Or I have created something as simple as 6 pages or 4 pages in InDesign. But it can handle that amount of pages, and other programs just don't have this page management system. You can organize things into spreads or also single pages. So this is a single page right here, and this is a spread. So the spread, you'll probably notice this in the editorial magazine. A spread consists of a left side and a right side spread across, and this will be printed as you open up the magazine. You're seeing both the left and the right sides. So you can set this up in a lot of different ways, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So we have pages, we have properties, we have your libraries panel if you happen to have the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite and you like to kind of share libraries and colors and assets across all your different Adobe products. So we have your links, which is another important asset or panel that we're going to be going over, because we're going to have a lot of linked assets in here, like certain photos that are going to be linked, and we can edit those photos outside of InDesign in Adobe Photoshop, update them, maybe make it black and white, save them, and they will automatically update in your links panel. So just kind of something we'll go over. You'll be able to see all this in action when we go over our practical projects here soon. Also layers, it's going to work a lot like other Adobe products where you can add layers on top and send layers in the back and the front depending on what you want to do. So let's go ahead and create a new document. So we're going to go to File, New, Document, or when you open the program, it'll prompt this same dialog box. So what we want to do is we want to create a simple 8.5 by 11 document. So we're just going to do a standard page. If you are in Europe, you may want to do an A4. You may want to stick to centimeters, but you can also do inches just to kind of work along with me. It doesn't really matter. We just want to kind of get a standard average page size or most frequently used page size. So we're going to go down here instead of picas, we are going to do inches for now. We're going to do an 8.5 inches in width by 11 by height. And we're going to put maybe 12 pages. Of course, we can always add pages and subtract pages easily in the Pages panel. So facing pages is going to have a front cover, which will be a single page, and then it'll have spreads anytime you do a facing page. And anytime you unclick facing pages, it'll just be single pages and not the double spreads. So we want to do a couple of editorial spreads, so let's go ahead and click on facing pages for now. And we can always add different columns if we want to stick to a certain column grid. We talked about grids a little bit with editorial layouts. Some people want to have a 4-column grid to kind of go on. We're just going to click with one for now. We're going to do something different with grids later. And this is where you can change a couple of different options like your gutter. Your gutter is going to be the spacing between the different columns. So if there's a certain gutter, you want to have a wider gutter, more space between your columns, you can add that as well. Of course, the default margins for inches is 1/2 inch all the way around, which is very generous. You can increase this if you want, but I like to leave it at a default, and we can always change that later. And bleed is another thing you have to worry about with print. Anytime you export something for print, a printer will usually like you to add a little extra spacing on the edges of bleed. We've talked about this in previous lessons. Same thing here, you can add it or decide to worry about that later. So let's go ahead and create. And the first thing you'll notice, the first thing I do whenever I open an InDesign document is I go right to the Pages panel and I kind of see my entire layout. This will be the front cover of, let's say it's a magazine. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out so you can see this. So this is kind of what facing pages does, is it gives you that first front page and then it gives you the spreads all the way down, and then this is your back cover. So that's how a lot of this, when you were to export this as a PDF to send to a place to get printed like a book, the first page will always be your front cover, the back page will always be the very last single page, and all your inside spreads will be in between those. And we can always arrange this as well. So let's say we create a document. Let's just go ahead and just create a simple square just really quickly. So let's say I have this spread, and let's say I want to move it. I don't want it to be the first spread in the magazine. We can always select the left side, hold down Shift, we can select the right side, and we can drag this all the way down to make it the next one. So I'm going to drag it. You can drag it right there in the middle and split it, or you could drag it right over. I'm just clicking and holding. I haven't released yet. And I can drag it over here, so it's going to come after page 4 and 5. So I'm going to release. So you can move this around however you'd like and change the order. You can even take it out of order and say, I want to have this right page. I need to flip it with this one. So I'm going to bring this down, put it right there, and you can also change single pages by just selecting one and dragging them around. So that's kind of a simple way that Pages works. You can go down here and add as many pages, as many spreads as you want. You can also select, I'm just clicking on page 14, holding down Shift and going all the way down to page 19, and you can do the trash can and delete entire spreads or entire pages if you'd like.